Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, one of the companies building one of the top AIs that's reshaping everything, just issued a warning. AI could eliminate half of all entry level white collar jobs in the next 1 to 5 years. It's sort of already happening. And 1 to 5 is not a slow burn. That's a sprint. As we all know, we've seen other technology kind of transformations happen. And 1 to 5 years, you can blink and that's a person's, college time, right? So why is it happening so much faster than previous tech disruptions? Because, when the internet happened, that wasn't a 1 to 5 year, sprint that happened over kind of a decade, and it's still happening. So what's happening? Why is it happening so much faster? And what's different about AI?
Interesting question. And again, and always sorry to do this, but there's a lot. I like to present as many different ways to think about things as possible. And what's interesting about the 1 to 5 year window that Amodei is providing is that's been his consistent statement about when a company like his, like specifically Anthropic, is going to reach some level of AGI, whatever that is. So effectively, this generalized artificial intelligence. So the way you have to read into this is almost the reverse, which is he's been saying for a while now, 2 years, basically that we're going to get to this moment of AGI sometime before 2030. And there wasn't much feedback from that. People are like, yeah, sure, that'll happen. And now I think he's doing what I would do in this case, and what I think a lot of us who are in this field doing. Like, we're trying to find tactical things that we can effectively, I hate to say it, scare people on, because like we got to start kicking people in the pants about this. So I think that he's reading the tea leaves well, because again, we've just had published data that says that this is already starting to happen. So he's picking this point, which I think is a really interesting point, which is if you get AGI in the next 1 to 5 years, one of the results is you're going to start to lose those entry-level jobs because they're going to be taken by this. Now, I would say, and again, given some of our previous discussions, when you're talking about AGI, that's not entry-level job. That's talking about it taking an average human and their intelligence and just replace that with with a machine. So replace an average level intelligence human with a machine. Now that's not entry level. That average person, again, if you look at your span, like you could be talking the 5 to 7 year expert in their field that this could be replacing. And so I think he has to start somewhere with his point, which is like, if you get AGI, like, hey, we're going to lose entry level jobs. By the way, you're going to lose a big chunk of jobs, but like, let's start at the bottom and just say this, and let's think about the implications of that.
Right.
And again,
Right.
What's interesting about this is that didn't happen. Like, a lot of people went, wow, this is crazy. And then we went on to the next news cycle. And it's like, you need to be having these discussions about like, what does it mean in your industry if you lose the ability to have in 6 years, 6 year veterans, right? Because that's what we're saying today is if you remove people in the bottom of the funnel today, that in 6 years, you will not have 6 year experienced people in that field anymore. And again, like, this isn't and if you listen to the news cycles, it was so focused on like, are you right? And like stop, like, don't have that discussion. Have the, like, this may happen. And like, let's start talking about what it means if it goes up. And if we should be regulating, if we should be saying slow down, like, I don't know what the right answers are for things, but we need to start having these discussions. And I would just say, our whiplashy media cycles where things happen on an hourly basis, I just think it got lost in the noise. So I applaud him for trying.
Yes.
And it lasted through maybe a day and a half news cycle. And it's gone already again. But like, the problems are real.
Yeah, the problems are real, Rob. And what's mind blowing is that barely anyone's talking about it. He talked about it. And like you said, it was like whiplash, like it was here and gone. And if I know that people are like afraid of the inevitable, right? So like universities are still selling degrees for jobs that may not exist. Parents, I'm one. Maybe I'm a little ahead of the pack here, but some parents are still giving traditional career advice. And there's such a disconnect, right? I know he stepped out and he said this, but I don't know how many people heard it that were parents, and I don't know how many people heard it that head up universities. And you've kind of already touched on this. What should they be doing? Maybe somehow this pod will get forwarded to the right people to say, hey guys, we have to discuss this at our next meeting. Like, let's start to prepare for this, because it's not going to go away. It's only going to speed up, and it will impact all humans and all businesses.
Yeah, so this goes back to one of the things we discussed in our last one, which is like what does it mean to have an AGI? What does it mean? What are the places where this can affect things? And I think right now, if there's a single thing that ChatGPT did to screw us all over, everyone has now used it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has now used it, and everyone goes, "Oh, I get it. I know what it is." And the answer is no, you don't, because even when you look at the difference between what we do in a platform like Charm and the way that we use it as basically an amplifier for your own intelligence versus this tool that you use for question answering, like when you look at that night and day difference, we can't even get people to understand what we're talking about on the Charm side. So
Right.
like, again, the problems with ChatGPT is it made it look like a tool and it made it look like a question answering tool. And
Yes.
people are just not understanding that this is not that. Even again, in some stuff I listened to yesterday, again, some such and such Nobel laureate and like this and this economists are like, this is not going to have any impact. And I'm just like, if we actually go back to, again, previous podcast statement, which is we're not building artificial tool, we're building artificial intelligence,
Right.
which, doing a little side thing here, I keep on all of the different AIs. So whether that's audio, videos, music, tools, etc. I keep up on all of it. I forget the name of the company and I apologize. Just did a really interesting announcement yesterday for virtual avatars. So picture, and they really specifically focused on the 9:16 format, and you basically give it text. It gives you, let's just call it 10 seconds worth of a realistic looking person that looks like an influencer that basically just says whatever the heck it is that you say. And you can create that avatar, and then that avatar is consistent in character and like all these things. So the reason I bring this up is specifically, again, where we're headed is a world in which we're passing the Turing test on all levels, whether that's auditory, visual, etc. So today you go into your ChatGPT and you type some stuff and stuff happens. And sure, if you're more advanced, you can go to Notebook LM and you can have it produce a podcast and then you can listen to two people talk to each other. But it is not going to be a very distant future in which two things appear. One is a memory that lasts through a number of cycles. And a second is you're just going to see a screen like you see us on the screen today. And you're going to be talking with a thing that you're comfortable with and has been the same thing. That's where we're going with this. It's not a tool. So again, just picture Mary in accounting or John in finance or whatever that you normally talk to. Now just imagine bringing that up and then talking to them about whatever it is that they do, right? So it's like, hey, I have my expense report. I filled this field in wrong. And they go, sure. And you're looking at John or Mary and they look exactly like they have always looked, but they're not human. They're just some virtual thing that represents your finance department. And you have the exact same conversation. Like that's fundamentally different than some tool or something else that's going on. So like,
100%.
this is, so I just want to bring that up to our audience again, is like, we're not building tools. We're effectively building humans in a box where you're going to say, you're going to go click, 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 give me 12 more. And I need them specialized here and there and there and there. And then they're just going to be there. So like, if you somehow are comparing that to like the whatever industrial revolution, which again applied scarcity economics, you had to build factories and mine things and everything else. Like we don't have those problems. Like we are building data centers at an amazing clip. We are building power plants at an amazing clip. We're going to be pretty okay on like the scarcity side of stuff. So coming all back. So I'm trying to paint the picture again of what we're talking about here. And so like, what does this mean for colleges? Like what do parents tell their kids? Why aren't colleges saying anything? And again, 2 weeks ago, I was at the Wharton and I was talking to all of those academics about the future of work. And like, schools make money. They are money machines. Like they're going to continue to try to make money doing this thing that it is that they've been doing for the past 200-300 years, which is put people through these courses based on these people that have experience. But what I always say is education has two purposes. One is, if you're in a democracy, you have to have educated people in order to have them elect good leadership. So that's point one. And point two is it serves the need of the like economics of your society, right? So today, the reason why we tell people to go to school is because we have lots of holes in our white collar job market, right? We need more of these things. But if these jobs go away, then we have to redecide what we're going to do with that education. And as I've said, this is like, there used to be lots of schools, like think of husbandry, for example, like dealing with animals, right? Like there used to be thousands and thousands of schools that you would send people to, and roving people who would make sure you understood how to blah, blah, blah with your animals. But that doesn't exist anymore because like we have different ways of doing those things, right?
Right.
And it may just be that we don't have higher education anymore because like we don't need that function in our society anymore. We have machines that do it, just like we have plows. We may have machines that do the white collar job. So, and I'll just say on a personal note, and I may have mentioned this a couple of times back, I was recently talking to my financial advisor about this, like what is the progression of things that you do as the economy changes? And his first statement is put your money in schools, because the first thing that people do is they go back to school when the economy changes. They need to cross skill and upskill and all this other stuff. And I'm like, that normally makes sense if there are other jobs in which you can apply those schools to. But I started to get him thinking about the fact that, sure, people may do that initially because, like we're talking about here, people don't know that the world's changing. My financial advisor didn't know that the world was changing.
Right.
Which is crazy. So,
yeah.
But there may be a world in which, again, like all of this starts to collapse at the exact same time, right? We lose these entry-level positions because you can do them. Because entry-level positions are disappearing, well, you might not have people going to school anymore. I'll say I think that there's going to be a few years where people try to do that thing where there are still jobs left in certain areas and people try to get cross-skilled in them. But, and again, I hate to be negative Nelly here, but I've spent a lot of time dealing with these artificial intelligences that we've been working on. It's getting generalized. Like they are going to go to a place where I think a lot of these jobs are going to be pretty well consumed by these machines. So, you know, I don't think people are keeping up. And I know that it takes sometimes decades for universities to change curriculums. And I know a lot of professors that are just dealing with the ChatGPT problem today of like, well, how do you teach people in a school where they can just cheat more effectively and so forth?
Yeah. And I think to your point, that's 100% right. Right. People might be listening to this like, yeah, right. Like this is going to take my job. You have no idea. I have all the historical knowledge. I know where all the bodies are buried in this company. I know my customers better than anyone. I know all products and services, but I don't think people know, like they think AI and they think ChatGPT. They think question, answer. They think write a paper for me, make my email look better, right? Maybe even like, what do I make for dinner tonight? Question, answer. It has evolved so far beyond that. That is like AI basics, right? AI for dummies. Now, you mentioned it. We're talking about avatars. We're talking about people that look like me, that sound like me, that have all of my knowledge, right? In terms of specifically what I do and how to do it. And that can be turned on, right? Maybe it doesn't replace the whole human, but it can certainly replace part of the human, right? So people aren't really dealing with what's in front of them. And I think we've talked about this earlier is like, what can you do? We are always advising our audience, like what should you guys be doing to get started? It's like, just get started. Learn to collaborate with AI beyond the question answer, right? Beyond the chat GPTs of the world. Go create images, right? Go work and solve complex problems. So collaborating with AI, don't compete with it because it's going to win every time. Take it from us. But the evolution is here. The evolution is now, and it's further along than most of us, what we think. Right. But what is us as humans? What can we kind of future proof ourselves with right now? One, collaboration with AI. You and I talk about it every week, all the time.
We do.
Don't compete with it. Just do it. What are some other things as humans that we can do to kind of future proof ourselves right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to go with all what my usual things are when we get to these kind of discussions, which is adaptability is super important during this time. Finding your collective local voices that you can have these discussions with. And sometimes it may be the machine that you're having those voices with, but join us in the comments and have discussions with us, bring up ideas where we can talk about them. But again, as you said earlier, start getting started. Don't freak out because as I've mentioned this story a bunch of times, my mom's a chronic worrier. And I always ask her, or I present the statement of, if worrying will help the situation, then be the best worrier that you can be. But if it doesn't help the situation, then I can guarantee you it won't help the situation. It
Right.
doesn't help your mental state. It doesn't help anything. So I know it's hard to do, but do the deep breath and relax and breathe through the moment and think about what you should do in these next steps. And again, be adaptable. Try to learn as much as you can about what's coming and what's going. I'll admit, I'm starting to look around and try to find what people like. We're going to go through this interesting change, and there have to be people talking about what the next step is. And there's people talking about post-labor economics, which is super fascinating. And I would say, like, this is amazing to be at this point in our species and just simply say, like, we have the opportunity to decide what we want our futures to look like. And how often does that come up in history where we get to choose? Like, it's happening now. Like, get involved in these discussions that is happening. Like, how do we do this stuff? How do we think about it? How do we support each other?
And have those conversations with friends, family, have them with your AI of choice, right? I know a lot of people in my personal and professional lives have already named their AIs that they work with and have relationships with them. It's an interesting conversation to have. I would encourage you to have it. I had it before we taped this podcast today to vet through some of my own experiences and own views and own, kind of own like thoughts around it. So as an individual, those are great tips and great things to do. Obviously, I'm going to let everyone know they should definitely do that through CharmIQ because there's so many different personalities and LLMs within that one platform, so you can get really different perspectives and not just a flat ChatGPT perspective, right? But for the bigger picture, let's talk about the individual. We talked about the individual responsibility. Let's talk a little bit about companies and universities and governments. You've touched on it. Is there anything that you want to kind of seal up there for those folks that are listening that are leading organizations, working in organizations or universities? How should those folks kind of be thinking about it and preparing?
Absolutely. So what's interesting, I was going to bring this up earlier, but I'll just bring this up in this context. What was interesting about Amade's statement when it came out was I was starting to think about where we are in this progression and what it means. And again, it's specifically in my field where I have the most experience and the most exposure, which is around software and things like that. As I mentioned earlier, it is extremely easy and straightforward to go into a code base, take your Windsurf or your cursors or even your GitHub Copilots, and you can just give them a problem and they'll go through your source and they'll show you how to solve that problem. I literally did one this morning, something that I thought that was going to take me an hour to do. Took me maybe 2 minutes for the machine just took care of. Like, again, I've been doing this job for 30 years. I know how to bite size my work. I know how long things took. And again, I allocated an hour for a task that literally took 2 minutes. I bring this up because the thing that's been on my mind is we've, in about the past 2 years ish, it's been about 3 if you really look at how long we've been putting gas on the fire of the Gen AI. We've gone from effectively nothing to where we are today, where we're having these discussions, and that's 3 years. Now, what's interesting about that is, again, in my field, we've effectively eliminated the need for first year developers. It is absolutely moot to do that. And so now that what I mentioned earlier and what I'm going to carry on with now, which is like, well, how do you think about that? Given the fact that I have no more entry level people coming in, that means by definition, I don't have a second year person coming in available tomorrow or next year, I should say. Because like that first year person isn't going to become a second year person. Because again, they weren't in the first year, they can't be the second year.
Right.
And what's interesting is at the rate of change at which we're going, just bear with me here, just think about this. I'm going to give it to you as a thought exercise. Is again, in 3 years, we've basically gotten rid of entry-level people. If we continue on the path that it feels like we're going towards, you're going to be able to replace second-year people next year with the tools that have progressed. So in the next year, our capabilities are going to be such that you're probably going to be able to get rid of second-year job applications. And if you think about that for a quick moment, that means that, of course, then the second years aren't going to progress to third years and yada, yada, yada up the tree. But if you kind of follow where I'm going here, in 2 more years, it's going to be more capable, at which point you're probably not going to need your third year person. And in 3 years, it's going to be more capable. You're probably not going to need your fourth level person. And you see where I'm going here, which is
I see
there's a
picture that you're
really weird world in which, and this is what scares me. So again, I'm responding to like my own internal scare. Like I had that, I was walking along, I was singing a song, trying to put my head in a happy place. And I'm like, wait a minute, at
yeah.
the rate we're progressing, it could just be, it's done. Meaning like when you look forward, the fact that this year we're not going to hire first level, and if it's capable enough such that we don't need to hire second level next year, those would have been the people that would have been the first year people that we brought into the things. We just don't need them anymore. And in fact, we're probably going to squish it. So if I were to really put myself in Amade's shoes, this is what I'm really trying to tell people is that it's already happened by definition, by the fact that we're starting at the bottom and it's chewing its way up the thing. You're making the bet. And so your question was, what should companies, organizations, and these things do?
Yes.
I'm making the bet, and I'll put that out there. I'm making the bet that we are going to keep up on a year over year progression over the next, call it 7 years, that in 7 years, we will have machines that are capable enough to replace 7th year programmers. And so therefore, I should not have hired the first year person this year because I don't need them this year. And by next year, I'll have it. And by next year, and by next year, and by next year. So by definition, in my worldview, and again, I'm throwing this out as a thought experiment for people, which is like, there is no more hiring from the bottom of the funnel up. Like it's done. The people that are in the funnel that exist today, that's it. There are no more new jobs in my industry. And if anything, all that's going to happen is that funnel is just slowly going to get winnowed down until you basically have 1 or 2 people at the top of that funnel that effectively understand the role of all the rest of the jobs and can then just use the tools. I'm trying to light a little bit of a fire and just say like, hey, if you buy that this is maybe possible, then all of the rest of these things are true because the pace is not stopping in spite of the fact that we keep hearing all of this stuff saying, hey, the pace of progress has stopped. And it's like, it's not. That's the farthest thing from the truth.
Right. I mean,
And it's just
the machine
chiseling
only
its way up.
gets smarter, right? The machine never stops going. It only gets smarter. It only learns more with more information, with more time, with more evolution.
And in nonlinear, like every time we make an advance, it starts to go exponential. So
Yeah.
again, going back to your question, what should companies, universities, governments, and so forth be doing is they have to be going through that thought exercise right now,
Yes.
which is if we stop, not only will it stop, but we believe that it will advance such that you'll start to chew away all of those rungs as you go up. So think about your proverbial lighting the candle from the bottom, like it's just going to burn its way up. And I have to, again, I'm not saying that is absolutely what will be true, but for people who are in government, who are in universities, who have to do this planning, who have to do a 10-year plan, a company has to do a 5-year plan. Like you have to start thinking about what that means. So my advice is what it always is in these cases, which is you have to start starting. You have to start
Yes.
thinking about what does it mean for your industry, your organization, your university, for the government. Like you have to start starting. So that's
Yes.
my.
Yeah. And I mean, this has been sobering, but necessary. And everyone that's listening, we're not here to scare you. We want to give you the most information that we can and to help you get started if you haven't already. And I don't mean just like a ChatGPT question and answer. That is a start, but you need to evolve from there because this technology, these machines are so much more than a glorified Google search. Amade's warning isn't science fiction. It's a reality that's unfolding right now. And most people still don't see it. Some people don't even know about the advancement in avatars, the advancement in images and music and problem solving. So if you're listening and early in your career, this isn't fear mongering. This is a wake up call. The entry level apocalypse isn't inevitable if you prepare. But what does that really mean? The old rules are gone. So get started, comment, reach out to us. We can continue this conversation with more tips and more recommendations. Obviously, Rob and myself will be following the evolution of this on a daily and minute basis because that's how quick it's moving. For those of us, like myself, raising the next generation, or leading teams, we owe it to them to stop sugarcoating reality, right? So we should have good conversations and honest conversations with our children, with our family about the future of work, about the future of careers, and really continue to tap onto what makes us human, which is our empathy, which is our ability to relate to each other and be with each other. The machines will not, hopefully in our lifetime completely replace us, because the humans still have the human touch and the human heart. So we've linked CharmIQ, our previous conversations, in the show notes, and we'll continue exploring what this means to build a meaningful career in the age of AI. There will be opportunities. So Rob, thank you for helping us face this moment head on, and we look forward to hearing and seeing from you all next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks, Rob.
you. Bye.
Bye.